Good afternoon, fourth graders of Mobile County Public Schools. It is me, Miss Cook, again for your ELA lesson on this beautiful Monday afternoon. I want to welcome you to the last week of learning for the 2019-2020 school year. Can you believe that we're in our last week for completing assessments and any assignments for your teachers? I know I am aghast by that. I can't believe that the school year is already over. It's crazy, isn't it, boys and girls, to believe that it's already here. I can't believe it, but it is. So we are going to talk about, just for a few seconds, about what that means. So any assessments and any assignments that your teacher has assigned to you will need to be completed by Thursday afternoon and turned in, boys and girls. So parents and guardians, grandparents, all assignments and assessments will need to be completed and turned in on by Thursday. Thank you, boys and girls, guardians, grandparents, aunts and uncles, for your patience, for your support during this time. We could not have done anything without you, and we want to say a super thank you. So, boys and girls, as I said last Thursday, we are going to begin a new standard. But you'll see that it's really not all that new. And as you've been taught this past year, and as you've been taught over the years, you're going to see that many of the standards kind of overlap and intertwine, and they work together, just like we work together. Teachers work together, boys and girls work together, family members work together to get meals together and get them accomplished. Standards do the same thing. So standards are like a family. They work together. Standards are like a classroom. Everybody works together for the common good of the classroom. And so, boys and girls, I want to turn your attention to our standard that we're going to be working on over the next few lessons. And it starts with a W. Now, this W is different because we've been looking at our L, reading of literature, and our I, reading of informational text. Today, in the next few lessons, will be on the W standard, and that stands for writing. So this is what we would call a written response or an open-ended. So you may have heard your teacher say written response or open-ended. Either way, they are synonymous. So you are writing a response. When I read the standard to you, boys and girls, hopefully I'll explain it and it'll make more sense. So we are looking at writing, fourth grade, standard 9. And that standard 9 is a standard that encompasses all the standards in a way so that we can see what you've learned throughout the whole year. So let's take a look at it. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I have really brought out that the word text is mentioned 3 times in the literature standard and 3 times in the informational standard. I'm wondering if you've already seen the word text is mentioned. Yes, 3 times again in this one as well. So boys and girls, we know that the text, even in the writing standard, is very, very crucial as well. So in this writing standard, draw evidence from literature or informational text. So as you're reading either literature or informational text, you're going to draw the evidence out. So you're going to pull it out. You're going to be that reading detective to find the evidence. For why, Miss Cook? Why would I do that? To support either the analysis, the reflection, and or the research of something. So as you are answering questions, you're going to find you're going to find evidence from the text, whether it's a literature or whether it's informational text. So you've got to go back in the text, boys and girls. And then you'll see something in parentheses, and this is more of a kid-friendly or a student-friendly or a teacher-friendly definition of what this is. This is text-dependent. So if you take a look at the word dependent, you see the root word depend. So these questions depend on the text. So many of the answers go right back in the text. So these are explicit details where the author does tell you exactly what he or she wants to hear back from you. So text-dependent questions about literature and informational text. So there again, you're going back to the text, boys and girls. So that is our standard over the next few lessons. So now, boys and girls, I want to draw your attention to our writing or our writer's checklist. And I showed this checklist to you toward the beginning of my lesson several weeks ago. Now, this is what you do after you write your response. So after you've written all your response out, you will proofread it and check for these areas. The first thing that you check for is, did I address all parts of the writing task? In other words, did I answer the question being asked? So all parts of the writing task, that's very important. Make sure, and sometimes, and you'll see in today's lesson, that the author will even bullet things so that you follow and make sure that you answer all parts of the writing task. Second, I included evidence. There we go, boys and girls. That's that writing fourth grade, ninth standard. I included evidence from the text. Go back to the text. Why? To support ideas in my essay. Third, I stayed organized and focused on the writing task. Make sure that you don't follow that train track down at the wrong track, boys and girls. Don't go down an empty hole or something so that you don't answer something or tell about a story or something that's not related to the task at hand. Fourth, on our checklist, I used correct language, a variety of sentence types, and paragraph transitions in my essay. So make sure, boys and girls, that you use the correct language. So if you're speaking about baseball, make sure that you're using that type of language. So you're using those types of vocabulary words. You're also using a variety of sentence types and sentence structures, that you're not always starting your sentences off the exact same way. I was, I did, I saw. You might want to vary those a little bit. And also using your paragraph transitions. And sometimes, boys and girls, those look like first, comma, then, comma, lastly, comma, if you're talking about a sequence of something. Next to last, we see in our checklist, it says, I corrected. So when you're reading over what you've written, you're going to go back and correct any capitalization errors. And we know that at the very beginning of every sentence, the first letter is capitalized. Also, anyone's name is capitalized. And boys and girls, so you're going to make sure that the pronoun I is capitalized in every sentence. So that's what, boys and girls, that they're talking about here. You're also going to check for correct spelling. If a word is in the text, it should never, ever, ever be misspelled. Under no circumstances should it ever be misspelled. So even if it's a name that you're not familiar with, make sure, boys and girls, that you go back to the text. That's going and referring back to the text to make sure that you're spelling it correctly. Also, you're correcting sentence formations. Punctuation. We know that every sentence ends with either a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. And you're using appropriate word choice. Again, you're using those vocabulary words that is associated with that type of writing or topic. Again, going back to baseball, you're going to use those types of vocabulary words and those types of word choice words so that it makes more sense and so that it pulls everything together. And finally, in our writer's checklist, it says, I reread the essay to make sure it was clear and well organized. Now, boys and girls, we read it twice. The third checklist and the last one talks about organization, staying focused. So make sure, boys and girls, that you're reading it so that it makes sense and that it's real tight and all together. And boys and girls, it may take more than once to read your essay or read what you've written to make sure that it makes sense and has all of these different checklist components. Okay, boys and girls? Hopefully, this helps you as a fourth grader become an even better writer for those fifth grade teachers to really see how much you've learned this year. All right, boys and girls, we're going to go ahead and look into a literature-based text. And it says, read the following story. So I know as a reader that now I know over the last few weeks we've been looking at informational text. So now, boys and girls, we're going into literature again. Now we know that literature involves characters and setting and plot. And so that helps me as the reader get my mind ready for what's going to come up. And so it also tells me in the directions to answer the questions that follow. Now, we're going to go ahead and look at the title. And it says, From the Moffats. So this is just a portion or an excerpt from the Moffats. And it's written by Eleanor Estes. Now, I've said in the past that with this word that begins with the M, Moffats, if you pronounce it a little bit differently, it's okay. Sometimes people's names may be spelled differently or they may be pronounced differently. So if you pronounce it a little bit differently than I do or I pronounce it differently than you do, it's okay. My own daughter's name, I spelled it differently just to be different, and that's okay too. So in your name, boys and girls, may be spelled differently or even pronounced differently just to be different. We're all unique in our own regards, right? And we like our uniqueness, and that's okay too. So boys and girls, as you are reading, even if it's read aloud, it's okay to pronounce names a little differently, as long as you continue to pronounce them the same way so that you don't get them confused in your head, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at this text. And remember that as we're answering questions, we're going to refer back to the text so that we can draw evidence from it, okay? All right, so let's take a look. From the Moffats by Eleanor Estes. Paragraph 1. Jane Moffat watched Mr. Bruni, the grocery man, drive up with his horse and wagon. Now, I just read that first sentence, and I already have a lot of thoughts in my brain, and I bet you do too. So, we know who Mr. Bruni is. It tells us actually in the text that he is the grocery man, and he is driving up and delivering these groceries with this horse and wagon. So boys and girls, would you think that this is present day time, past, like happened in the past, or is this futuristic? Like, I know we talked about science fiction one time, like futuristic. So I want you to think for a few moments. Is this present day? Does this happen like in today's time? Would this happen in the past? Or is this futuristic? Something that would happen like 100 years, 300 years, 1,000 years from now. I want to give you a few minutes to think about that. Okay, share out with someone. What do you think? Are you thinking past, present, or future? I agree. I think this happened probably in the past because of some things that it says that he has a horse and a wagon delivering groceries. And I know from my study in the past that not only was groceries brought to homes, but milk was too. All right, let's take a look now in the second sentence. The Moffats called Mr. Bruni's horse the Dancy Horse because of the graceful way he threw his legs about when he cantered up the street. Oh, wow, look at this sentence. This horse is being referred like a dancer. And look at this word, graceful. Wow, you know, when we were talking about the writer's checklist and that word choice, when you think about a dancer, you do think about the word graceful because of the way that they carry themselves on stage and also the way that they move their arms and their legs. So boys and girls, the author, Eleanor Estes, was very careful in her word choice when she talked about the horse. So whenever you're answering questions, you want to be mindful of those word choice words as well. All right, we're going to continue reading. Mr. Bruni stopped between Mrs. Squire's house and the yellow house. He threw down the heavy iron weight to keep his horse from dancing away and took several baskets of groceries from the wagon. He crossed the street and disappeared in Mrs. Frost's backyard. He was gone a long time. So what can we say about Mrs. Frost? We've been talking about inferencing for quite some time now, not only with informational text, but with literature. Well, what do I know? Remember, it's a two-part thing. We take evidence from the text and what I already know. So let's take evidence from the text, and then we'll take what we already know and we put them together to infer. Well, let's see. It tells me in there, oh, he took several baskets of groceries. Well, several baskets, that means that's a good bit of groceries. We know that he disappeared in Mrs. Frost's backyard, so they belong to Mrs. Frost, and he was gone a long time. Oh, so that must mean that Mrs. Frost ordered a good bit of groceries. Maybe she has a big family. And you know, boys and girls, since we've already said that this happened a long time ago, people back then did not go to the grocery store as often as we do now. We can go to the grocery store every day, but back then they did not go as often. So maybe Mrs. Frost got her groceries a lot at one time, and so maybe I could infer that she has a large family, or I could infer that maybe she just got as much as she needed for that whole month or for a 2-month or 3-month period. So let's take a look and let's continue reading. The horse stood there with the greatest patience. Occasionally, he flicked his long tail to rid himself of a pesky fly. Are you making a connection with this? Because I have neighbors that have horses, and I have seen them with their tails. Man, they use them like a fly swatter. Yes! Did you hear that simile I just used? Like a fly swatter. I don't know about you, but on these hot days, those flies come in all the time, and I'm having to use my fly swatter. Well, obviously, horses don't have hands to use their fly swatter, so they use their tails to swat those flies, those pesky flies. And if you've ever seen horses or cattle out in fields, you'll see their tails, they're not wagging, but they are swaying, and sometimes they'll sway at the flies. So I can totally make a connection to this. Occasionally, okay, so I read that, or now and then, he wriggled an ear when Sylvie, who was practicing her graduation music, hit a high note. And sometimes he raised one dainty foot or another and then planted it firmly on the ground. For the most part, however, he stood there dreamily, looking neither to the left nor to right. I think Jane has a thing for this horse. I think she really likes this horse because the way she's describing this horse is very, very interesting. She thinks the world of this horse, as it seems, because of the way that she is describing it. Second paragraph. Jane watched him and watched him. If she's watching this horse, because the him, that pronoun, is referring to the horse, when you're watching something, that means you're interested in it. So my prediction was pretty good there. Let's look at paragraph 3. He had wings and could carry her away. Now, I don't think they mean that he literally had wings, but figuratively, that means that he could get her out of the situation or where she was currently. Paragraph 4. He was the wooden horse of Troy, and many men could step out of him. Oh, wow. She's really getting in her imagination in paragraph 4. Paragraph 5, he was a bridge that she could walk under. Wow, in that paragraph, they're comparing him to a bridge. They're using a metaphor there. Paragraph 6, sitting up there on the hitching post, watching the horse, Jane repeated to herself, the horse is a bridge for me to walk under, and I'm going to walk under it. Wow. So she's getting it in her head that she's going to go walk under this horse. Oh, I don't know if that's safe, boys and girls. What do you think? Share that idea with someone around you. Do you think it's safe for her to go walk under a horse? Oh. Paragraph 7. So she jumped down and marched over to the horse. He stood there immobile. Oh, let's look at that word immobile. So we have the prefix "im" and we have the root word mobile. Now, mobile means to move or able to move. And the prefix "im" completely changes that because it means not. So not mobile, not able to move. So he's standing there frozen like a statue. Wow, he stood there, the horse stood there frozen, like not moving at all, except for his eyes, which followed her around like those of the velvet-clad lady in the picture in the sitting room. Oh, so he's watching her. He's probably wondering what she's doing. Paragraph 8, Jane walked under him and came out on the other side. Oh, she did it. She walked under that horse. This gave her an extraordinary feeling of satisfaction and elation. She did it. She set out a goal and she did it. And now she feels extraordinary and she feels satisfaction and elation. That elation is like a feeling of happiness from down under, just really excited. At that moment, when Jane was walking under the horse, Mama came to the window of the front parlor and shook her duster out vigorously. Thank heavens, she said to herself. Thank heavens it's spring again, and that long, hard winter is over. No more fussing with stoves and wondering where the next coal was coming from, she thought, slapping her duster against the green shutters. But goodness, could Mama believe her eyes? What was Janie doing? Now, wait a minute. I thought her name was Jane, not Janie. Oh, that's a nickname. Okay, I bet her mama calls her Janie. Walking under that horse? Of all things, Mama was speechless with amazement and dropped the duster out of the window at the sight. She is scared to death. Joe and Rufus saw her from the other side of the yard and became all tangled up in their stilts in consequence. Sylvie, who was practicing her singing way back in the kitchen, was the only one who did not see her. Jane, whatever on earth, Mama cried. You mustn't do those things. You mustn't walk under horses. They might kick or start walking or something. Jane stepped thoughtfully up the walk. All right, Mama, she said. She had no desire to keep on walking under horses. It was just something she felt she had to do at that moment, just that once. And she knew that horse. She'd been watching him and watching him. So she had walked under him, and from the feeling inside of her, she thought it had turned out to be all right sort of thing to do just that once. Boys and girls, I enjoyed my time with you. We'll be answering questions on Thursday. Please stay tuned to Miss Weekly's math lesson. Have a blessed and marvelous Monday. Bye-bye.